Hey, welcome back to The Green Room, a cannabis podcast from 614 Media. And if I told you they got me to do 2 Munchies episodes in a row, would you believe me? I am going to start this episode by eating some of this here edible with some homemade cannabis butter from my special guest today. Special guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nick. Hi. Nick Gore, owner of GoreMade Pizza and originator of Fire It Up Friday, the day after they legalized marijuana.
Well, before we talk about that, should we eat this?
I think we should.
Let's start today off, I suppose.
I have not eaten this yet, and it's homemade, and it seems risky.
It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers to you as well. That was very crunchy for the microphone, probably. Also delicious.
Mm-hmm.
This is bread that you made, cannabis butter that you made, oregano that you grew correct. This is incredible. Nick, thank you so much for this gift.
You're welcome. Thanks for receiving it, because I didn't know what would happen in bringing this to you.
Nick, tell me about, so we did a Munchies episode last week. Tell me about your favorite pizza to eat after consuming marijuana.
Red sauce, pepperoni, sausage, banana peppers, a little spice, a little Parmesan.
You were so close to describing my favorite pizza of all time. If you swapped the pepperoni for pineapple, I'd be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a pineapple on pizza guy?
So because it's a stance that one has to take as a restaurant owner,
Absolutely.
or at least pressure in society tells you that you have to. But the official answer, if I have my pizza tie on, is that we are a locally sourced pizza restaurant, and pineapple does not grow locally. So we exit the conversation there. But if you're asking me personally, I think that pizza is whatever the hell you want it to be. And if you want to put pineapple on pizza, I love you for it. My kids like pineapple on pizza. And, there was a moment where I had feelings about it. And I'm like, please, son, go off into the world and eat your pineapple on your pizza. But the bread that I brought today, there's something about people and pizza. There's a really sharp expectation for people to have their definition of what pizza is. And they go so far as to say, pizza isn't if it's not this. And I think part of what I like to do is twist those things around. And today's bread was made with pizza dough. And the first pizza that I ever made was sliced white bread, Prego, sauce, and American cheese in the microwave. And that was pizza for that 7 or 9-year-old kid making pizza in his kitchen. And this is just a general twist to all of the expectations that people have with pizza. We know what pizza is. If you eat it with the intention of eating pizza, it's pizza. And
absolutely.
I would never tell you that what you're eating isn't pizza. Cauliflower and, cashew, Parmesan stuff, whatever. It's pizza if you want it to be pizza.
Yeah, it's pizza if you want it to be pizza. I do really like that. We were talking about, before we started recording, those old Lunchable pizza kits. And I remember, much like you were making sliced white bread in the toaster oven, like those Lunchable pizzas for second grade, sitting so intensely in the cafeteria, like drawing out my sauce and putting just the right amount of cheese on and saving as many ingredients as I could for that last disc so I could have a really fat pizza to end the day.
Yeah.
I love that. So Nick, tell me a little bit about GoreMade. Obviously you're part of the great pizza scene and the cool food scene that we have here in Columbus, but tell me a little bit about GoreMade and where it came from and what makes you guys stand out.
Sure. So GoreMade Pizza is local, seasonal, wood-fired pizza. That's basically all we do. We started as a catering company, but even before that, we started as just me doing Pizza Sunday at my house. So this whole thing is just me saying yes. When people say, hey, could you do that at my house? Sure, and then figure it out how. And then we bought a mobile wood-fired pizza oven, did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I quit my job and opened a pizza restaurant. And it's always been driven by resourcefulness. That's kind of my passion is looking around and and then that's what the pizza when I was 7 years old was looking around and making food with it. And that's really what GoreMade Pizza strives to do, is look around and make beautiful Neapolitan style pizza with it.
Yeah, that's really cool. What are some of your, favorite seasonal ingredients from local areas?
I find that changes all the time, and there are some staple favorites. Like right now, we've got a coconut squash sauce, and I like to do like bacon, caramelized onion, some kind of peppers, balsamic, maybe some feta, a little bit of spice. Summertime, when jalapeno starts showing up, peaches, jalapeno, again, bacon and red onion. I think I'm a bacon fan. But really, like, there's always something to be excited about.
Yeah.
It's never ending.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, I want to talk a little bit about how you ended up on our podcast today, which is not just because you brought me weed butter, which I do appreciate,
Right.
but also Fired Up Friday, something that you did at the restaurant that I think was one of, if not maybe the first business cannabis ventures in Columbus. Can you just tell me a little bit about that and kind of tell me that story?
Yes, I can. And I really haven't gotten to talk about this too much, so this is nice. So when pot became legal, we had 30 days between when we voted and when it came into law, but that was even vague. There was this moment where, there was this transition from demonizing marijuana to allowing it, and there was a lot of confusion and excitement and fear, and we have a century of hiding this thing that everybody who's been doing it has been doing it, and we code words and all this stuff, knowing how to contact people and use these words without being put on some weird kind of list. And I think this was that moment where we were transitioning into something else, and it seemed really obvious to me that we needed to start talking about marijuana in a different way.
Sure.
It was not, it didn't need to be hidden anymore, but we've trained ourselves so much to hide. So then there was just a lot to discover. What does this mean? Where do we find ourselves? How is this playing out? And I'm a big fan of taking up space immediately. So like if someone grants us the space to do something, filling that immediately, because it always felt contentious. And there was even like, as the days were going closer to this day that we were planning to do this event, Fired Up Friday, every day was a new, well, they're trying to do, there's just all this kind of push and pull. But it felt really obvious to me to celebrate this in the way of taking it out into the open, because that's what we're allowed to do now, is take this hidden thing out into the open. So Fire It Up Friday came in. And my goal was just to start the journey of whatever pot is now that it's not legal or not illegal. So the things that were really confusing were, I thought everybody was going to do something, and then all of a sudden I look around and it felt like I was the only one doing anything as a business.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to talk to me about it, and I was just walking forward like I thought we were all would, and then I realized I was standing on my own and there were a bunch of cameras around me. So that became a really interesting, but it shows when that attention gets on you, the story is out of your control. It becomes something that public creates, and you just have to respond to it. But having all that attention really I became the person that everyone dumped their fears into.
Sure.
Everyone was really scared. My employees were scared. The people that loved GoreMade Pizza were scared. Everyone was scared. And I had to be the person that wasn't scared.
Yeah.
And to hold that container and to be that person was a really interesting endeavor. And I took so many precautions. The first Fired Up Friday event, we invited the guy from South Fork Hemp, and he came with this huge jar of CBD. This is not CBD, but he brought this legal hemp as a way of like kind of smoke, like, smoking the air. What is it? Is it real? Who's smoking? We wanted to give like a dynamic of unsurety as to how we were breaking the law if someone thought that we were.
Sure.
But as it came closer to that day, we were being told that it was against the agreement of our liquor license, and no one is who owns a liquor license is allowed to willingly and knowfully encourage the consumption of a federally controlled substance. So pot was still federally controlled, and we were threatening our liquor license. And I was actually okay with it at the moment. And if they tried to shut us down the day it became legal, I think there would be a lot of backlash. So I was willing to stand in that space and see what happened.
Yeah.
And it was the busiest night we've ever had.
Sure.
It was wild. We were playing like, what's that marijuana scare movie?
Reefer Madness?
Reefer Madness, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had Reefer Madness playing, and it was a really downer. Like, it was a downer.
It was a real bummer.
But that night was beautiful, and, I was very deliberate about, we are smoking marijuana. And you're like, no slang, no
This is what we're doing.
accents. I was very enunciative, and the way that it evolved was really beautiful, and everybody was like, it was a really wonderful way for us to all see each other and not have to hide.
Yeah.
But as that went on, and I mean, the first night was such a success, I was like, we're going to keep doing this. And it got more and more pressurized, and things started changing with our business. People started coming and asking if we sold pot. We're a family establishment. And, then it was like, okay, well, maybe Friday after sundown, we'll start doing it then. And then we can ask the kids to go away and just be like a more adult thing.
Yeah.
But that got really complex too. And people didn't understand those boundaries, and it was hard to hold them. So ultimately, it became the idea that the way we've viewed marijuana culturally made this a safe haven for people that have been hiding. And a lot of that is, we're very different demographics of people and very different intentions with how to wield marijuana.
Sure.
I personally view it as a medicine more than anything, and I wanted to hold it with reverence, and I didn't have the energy to wield that container in that moment. So it became something different than I wanted to wield.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you bring up something really interesting where we talked at the beginning about 100 or so years of people hiding, and then suddenly there is this perceived safe haven and this desire for a space, and there's a space being held, but that space it kind of comes back to that, like, ma'am, this is a Wendy's. Like,
Yeah.
We're a pizza restaurant. I appreciate what you're doing, but we're a pizza restaurant. Talk to me a little bit about the afterwards. Are you still doing Fired Up Fridays?
No, we have not. And we haven't really publicly said that we're not. It was a really hard thing to talk about in general, because I really want to hold that space. I really want to be someone that creates a new dialogue with marijuana. It's been, when I was younger, if there was marijuana involved, it was very recreational, very, casual and overindulgent. And in my life now, I see it as something different. Sure. And I want it to be wielded with reverence. I'm very interested in any sort of plant that we intake. I feel like a level of reverence is required to really honor it. And I'm not into a very casual expression. So there's an evolution in my being. When my teenage self, I'll be like, yeah, let's smoke weed on the patio. And that child got what they wanted inside of me. And as I'm evolving with this, it got confusing as people were showing, can we smoke, can we smoke pot back here? And it's like, no, we can't. And the whole idea of smoking, one of the biggest confusions is children. Like, in this transition from illegal to legal, it's a little bit easier to see how we as adults can process this experience. But when kids get involved, even the biggest potheads, like, no, you don't smoke pot around kids. Drinking in front of them, and that's appropriate. But when it goes into the air, there's this new sense of responsibility that it's hard to navigate. I think children has been the hardest thing to resolve. But I have two children, 11 and 13, and I've been growing pot, and I've been talking to them about it. It's a very casual thing.
Yeah.
They don't think much of it. Our house is just strewn with pot right now. And they're just plants, just like everything else. And the amount of pressure that we put on them, and expectation and attention, has created this kind of burst of pressure that it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
We get far away from actually what this is and more into how we wield it and how we look at it.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. And I think that your evolution as a business owner of going from that point of, hey, there's space available and I want to take it up, to learning, growing, and realizing that this is space that we've taken up. This is a cool thing that we've done. This also is maybe not the path to continue down, and like, let's figure out a different way to do that. I think is really cool and shows the evolution. I think I've used that word twice. Shows the journey that somebody in the cannabis community can go through when you are trying to be at the front of the line, take that space for people, because it is really those of us who can sit down and host a cannabis podcast or have a cannabis pizza restaurant. We are not the people who have spent 100 years being heavily victimized and are still suffering from wrongful convictions and the likes.
Yeah, and I even had conversation that first night. Who here has had the law in their lives because of marijuana? And there was a lot of people. Yeah. Some people were in jail. Some people had had their lives ripped upside down. I got busted growing pot in the early 2000s, and it was a very weird tale. But there's a lot of pain that, and, you know, and it's really easy to overlook that. But there's been a lot of pain, and I think that's where marijuana is a great healer also. So I'm excited to see how it evolves.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the future a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts on maybe the next 1 to 5 years of what cannabis in public businesses looks like. And then I would love to hear sort of your dream scenario, where you want it to go, what you would like to see. So maybe the realistic and then the ultimate goal.
Yeah, when you invited me to come on here, I feel like I'm an outlier in a lot of what my goals are. I think the word reverence is important to me when it comes to any kind of plant medicine. So that perspective is what I'm going to come from entirely.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing right now, there's a place called Indoor Gardens, and that was a place where, 20 years ago, that's where I was buying my pot grow things, lights and ionizers or whatever, ozone generator. In the last few months, I've noticed that place on Saturdays has like these tents, and I wasn't sure what was going on, but it's right next to the Beachwald Farm Market, and I'm there a lot. So last time I was there, people were walking out with little red Solo cups with clones, and I'm really excited to see that. I have been looking for clones since it became legal, and no one seems to be wielding that. But in that world, in the garden world, especially with a place like Indoor Gardens, their freedom is really interesting because the law is clear for them. You know what I mean? Sure. It's like, oh, it has to have less than this THC and like small plants and seeds, they can sell those. The thing that makes it challenging when it comes to like a bar or restaurant is there's just still so much gray area in many different ways. Like, where can you buy it? How can you change it? It's not clear. And if the public is going to evolve with this in the way of bars and restaurants, there has to be some sort of someone that's willing to pierce all the fear. It's the same thing with like taxi cabs turning into Ubers. I worked for a taxi company when I came here. Yeah. And it was really hard. You couldn't drive a taxi without a taxi license. Then all of a sudden one day, Uber was everywhere. Sure. And I don't know what changed or who greased the wheels to make that, or who was bold to make that happen. I'm not exactly sure how that worked. Someone found a loophole, or someone found a way that they felt bold enough to walk through, and it worked. Yeah. I get the sense that that's how this is going to have to go, because there's just a lot of like shadows of ideas and people responding to what they think and fear and expectation. Somebody's going to need to just slice right through the bullshit and be willing to deal with what comes their way and continue. So when that happens, I think we'll see a lot more of an opening. Oh, they're doing it. Because that's what happened with GoreMade. Yeah. Everyone was waiting and watching what happens with GoreMade. And we stopped. Yeah. And I didn't mean to be in the front of anything. I was just walking the path that made the most sense. But in the end, I was the one standing out in front. And I heard from several people, yeah, I saw you were doing it. Just like peeking over the edge. What's going on in there? And if it would have worked in a certain kind of a way, and we would have been able to hold that, I'm sure other people would have started doing it. But the leader of that pack capitulated, and now all of a sudden there's like, well, what is anybody gonna, hey, somebody tried it and they're not doing it anymore. It must not be worth doing or must be too hard. Somebody's going to have to pierce that fear, because there's a lot of, it was legal, and there was a lot of misconceptions or like hearsay, and who even read the bill, who really understands it. Even the lawyers that I were talking to, they didn't understand it, you know? So
Yeah.
like that is part of it, is just this fear.
Yeah.
Fear.
Absolutely.
So if we're going to go forward, someone's going to have to create the container that makes sense for it, as in like whatever the vibe is it just super dirty stoner shit, or is this high end kind of elegant or whatever. Create a container, hold that solidly, and make sure that whatever they're doing has no leaks in it, and then just move forward with that. And once we see something like that, I think that will open up other people to feel safe with that also.
Yeah. That's really, I really like that. That perspective, and I think it's really interesting knowing, obviously, what you know as a business owner, being able to see sort of the wider range. I feel this toast.
Yeah, me
Nick.
too. Me too.
Thanks
for saying that.
I'm so glad.
Like, hey, I'm feeling the toast.
I looked over at the clock. I was like, it's been like 45 minutes. I look over and it said 23. And I was like, no, what do you mean?
What's going to happen in 23 more minutes?
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. And I think this is almost more of a my own dreams kind of question. But
yeah, please.
I think there's a really interesting possibility for less of a bar restaurant and more of a lounge type of setting.
Gotta be.
What are your pie in the sky? Like if you could design, not asking you to, but if you could design sort of like your ideal looking cannabis business, what do you think that would look like for you?
Well, I mean, so today I brought bread and pot butter. And to zoom out even further, if I were to wield marijuana in a public way, with that being the intention, it would be much more ceremonial. It would be what I find once you get into the idea of wielding something reverently, it needs to be guided in a certain kind of a way.
Yeah.
So I think in my realm, much like any other plant medicine, it would be a ceremonial thing. We would start a container, there would be a certain process involved, and we would hold that space together. So in my world, which again, I'm not suggesting this would be anybody else's world.
Sure.
It feels like a way to show people that this is to be respected and to be honored and to wield it in a way that allows for it to benefit your experience. And the same thing is true with anything that we wield overindulgently. Tobacco is a great one. I've been growing tobacco too, and I only smoke tobacco that I grow, and it's shown me a lot about how to hold something reverently. Yeah. So with all of these things, with all of these indulgences, I think what we're missing is a certain level of intention and reverence for that. And Absolutely. That's how we overindulge, is by being not reverent.
Yeah.
Thinking
really cool.
about it, consuming it without thinking. You know what I mean? I don't like that.
Sure.
I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, we're right about at time, and I want to wrap up this interview with a more lighthearted question. And I've been thinking about it all day. Nick, if you were to create the perfect infused pizza, what goes on that pizza? And I would love it if, because you're so knowledgeable in the space, if you could kind of walk me through the process that you would use to create those ingredients.
So at Gourmet, there was a group of us, and we called ourselves the Greenhouse Collective, and we did 3 or 4 infused dinners. And really, my friend, Chef Derek, he was there, and Richard Factor, those two together were a powerhouse of infusion. And this is a better question for the two of them. Richard was the dose guy, and Derek was the flavor guy, and they were super high-end and amazing individuals. And they made a lot of really awesome stuff that blew my mind. So as I think of what you're asking me, I would probably pull them in and be like,
I would hire those two guys.
no, we had a brain trust, and we all kind of like shared together, and it was a beautiful experience. But I would certainly go there. In the realm of making a pizza without the brain trust involved, there would certainly be an olive oil infusion. Oh, my my son today, or last night when I was talking to him about this interview, he was like, you should get some basil and some lemon and call it sour basil. And he has
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, he has some really funny ideas. But terpenes were a great tool. The trick with making infused food is that you can't get people obliterated. Yeah. You have to really consider what the dosage is and how they're going to be able to consume it or not consume it. So when you're making that, there's the dosing of the THC, and then there's also the flavor profiles associated with it. And if everything was dosed, then you get out of hand really quickly. Yeah. So one of the main games that the Greenhouse Collective was playing was getting flavor without fucking you up. Right. And also there's that. But a lot of what we were doing in that group was, okay, this is the part of the dish that is infused, and you can consume it and control your own level of dosing. So it would be built in like that. It would taste like it, we made a bagel for the Greenhouse Collective with, it was like a rye wood-fired bagel. Yeah. And we put dried dehydrated pot leaves in it, and like those are the kind of layers that would really go deep into it. So I suppose making the dough, I would put some sort of flavor, probably dehydrated pot leaves so that you could see it, and then maybe some sort of infused olive oil, some sort of cheese. Infused cheese. Maybe like a marinated cheese.
Oh yeah.
But in the end, it would probably come to the idea of what am I dosing? What is possible to get, that has fat that you can get. You could even make milk and cheese that. But all of these things, I'm losing my track a little bit. We have eaten some toast here, so please, a little grace. Terpenes would be a great, and then keeping it green and making that part of the process probably really rich. I would use something creamy. That's all I got for you on that question. What would you do? What would you make if you were making a dosed pizza?
Man, if I was making a dosed pizza, I think that where I would go would probably be like a pesto.
Oh, of course. Yeah, good one, dude. You're hired.
Thank you. Oh man, Nick, I got to be honest with you. When I was a little kid, my dream was to open a pizza restaurant, and life took me a different direction. But I love making pizza, and
you make it at home.
Yeah. And I think there's a world, there's a universe where my life takes a turn, and I'm slinging pizza out of a van that's covered in weed pesto.
Yeah.
Because man, do I love a pesto pizza. It's not my favorite sauce, but I do love it. And I think an infused pesto always goes really hard.
So good.
And I think I would do probably a pesto pizza with some feta cheese. And then I think a real sleeper protein on pizza is gyro meat. And so I think I would go pesto feta gyro meat on probably just a regular
That's
pizza.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You should come in and make pizza at GoreMade Pizza.
I would love to.
What are you doing this weekend? You want to come make pizza with me?
So badly. All right.
I'll be there Saturday and Sunday.
I might go make pizza. We're going to wrap up this interview. Nick, thank you so much for your time today and for joining me. Yeah. Can you tell people where is GoreMade, and if they want to know more about what's going on with GoreMade, where should they follow you?
Yeah, GoreMade Pizza is on social media. Instagram is where we're most active. Also, Facebook. We're on 4th Street, just north of the Wonder Bread Factory in Italian Village. We're open 4 to 10 during the week, and then noon to 10 Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, we got great wood-fired pizza. We're also doing ice cream sandwiches, and we haven't even started selling them yet, but it's the best ice cream sandwich I've ever had. I wonder if you could do like cold. Now I want to think about cold marijuana infusions.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of The Green Room. If you are in Columbus, go to GoreMade Pizza. If you're not in Columbus, come to Columbus and then go to GoreMade Pizza.
Don't smoke pot on the patio.
Don't smoke pot on the patio at GoreMade Pizza. And don't smoke weed and drive. And if you like this podcast, you should follow us on everywhere that podcasts are, because we are probably also there. Me and this toast are going to go take a nap. We'll see you next time on The Green Room.